In this video, I'm going to show you what's new in the Copy Services Manager 6.3.7 release. Copy Services Manager 6.3.7 releases at the end of June, should be GA and available on Fix Central. Just my normal pitch, if you've seen my videos before, this is what CSM does. It's your one-stop shop for your IBM storage replication needs. We can manage thousands of relationships. We do both DS8000 and flash systems. We have hyperswap support, warning prompts, user roles, and an advanced scheduler that you can build your own scripting into CSM in order to manage one or more sessions or safeguarded copy solutions. So very powerful, very easy to use, very easy to install. That's my overall pitch there. All right, so this is the list of new features in 6.3.7. Just at a glance, you can see some of the new things we have. We got 5 new customer-related ideas that we implemented and a few things that were internal. All right, the first one. This was Idea CSM I-130. The request was to provide a few more locks on what we call traditional flash copy sessions today. So safeguarded copy solutions, they really protect you in terms of your backups. They put it in non-addressable storage. You have to go and recover those volumes to another set of volumes before you can even access those volumes. So it's very locked down. However, safeguarded copy was never intended to replace flash copy. There are still a lot of scenarios where flash copy is a better option for you. But in some of those cases, the customer wants to still use flash copy, but prevent any writes or etc. to those target volumes, and so that's what we're added in the 6.3.7 release. If you go into the session properties for flash copy for DS8000 session types, we have 2 new properties. You'll see first an inhibit target writes property. And if checked, what this does is it actually lets you take advantage of the existing DS8000 feature today, which says that on that flash, on the next flash, the target volume will not allow any writes. So if you mounted that volume, you could read it, but you would not be able to issue any writes. And so this pretty much locks down the data on that volume, that target volume, so that you know it stays exactly the same as when you took that point in time copy. Second option is the minimum time frame per flash. This is very similar to what we did in the safeguarded copy sessions. We added this feature so that a malicious user can't do back-to-back backups on a safeguarded copy session in order to roll off the backups or change the data. So we added this to flash copy as well. It works the same. Except for it's against the flash command on that flash copy session. So if you wanted to keep flashes, say, every 12 hours, you could set this parameter so it would prevent anybody from coming in and taking another flash after 3 hours, taking another one after 5 hours, thus ensuring you always have that 12-hour mark of data. And so it's important to note, though, that this is only through CSM. You can still go to the DSCLI and manage it and do a flash if you had to. You could still even change the property if you in emergency if you needed to. Although if you have concerns with that, we definitely recommend you implement dual control so that you can lock down those properties. All right, the second feature I'm going to talk about is from Idea CSM I-89. So CSM has had dual control support for quite a while now, since we supported safeguarded copy. And dual control report basically requires you to have 2 users to issue any commands. So if you issue commands, somebody has to go and approve that command before it actually runs. Customers they're running safeguarded copy along with some Metro Mirror or Global Mirror type sessions. Had concerns because and didn't implement dual control because it was just too many commands that needed a second user, and they didn't really need that for their Metro Mirror or Global Mirror environments. They just really were concerned about their safeguarded copy environment. So what we've done in 6.3.7 is we've created a new mode of dual control called safeguarded copy mode. So the full protection mode for dual control, that's your existing kind of solution today, locks down pretty much everything. But your safeguarded copy mode is geared towards just safeguarded copy related actions. This includes expiring backups, recovering, restoring backups, modifying the properties for a safeguarded copy session, or even modifying scheduled tasks that are tied to the safeguarded copy session. So if you go into the dual control request panel or the administrative panel, at the top you will now be able to see a modify option as well as the status of which mode might be enabled. Disabled is the default, but you can go in and turn on full protection or the safeguarded copy mode now. The next one I want to talk about is from IDEA CSM I-74. This one we've had customers have been asking for a while now. And really what it is we have a session operator that allows an administrator or user administrator to set a particular user or set of users to access only certain sessions. So that kind of keeps them only issuing commands to that and doesn't give them administrative action across all the sessions nor the server itself. But customers want more granularity. They said that operator today can pretty much issue any command against a session. They want to lock that down more, and thus that's what this feature is. So now when you go into the View Modify Access for wizard, when you choose an operator, one of the panels you'll be presented is the ability to select which actions that user can manage against the sessions. And these are broken down into categories for remote copy, point in time, or safeguarded copy, as well as some miscellaneous categories. So for one example, you might set a user to be able to create backups on the safeguarded copy session, but you'll leave off the action for expiring backups. That means that user would never be able to do an expire backups. You might leave that to your administrator. You might have the safeguarded copy dual control mode on as well, but that particular user will never be able to issue that command. And so, yeah, if you can now pick and choose what actions a user might have at a more finer granularity. All right, next one is IDEA CSM I-120. This is support for ZOS pass tickets. So what this is CSM has for a long time now been able to make a connection from the CSM server through IP to the ZOS system. We do this via the Hyperswap address space. However, in order to authenticate, you as a user need to put in a username and password into the add host connection wizard or modify host connection wizard, so that we can send the command over and do the connection and have the two systems connected. The issue with this is, customer rules become more and more stringent on when a password has to roll. So if you have a certain number of days before a customer has to change the password for user ID, it becomes tedious because you'd have to come in, if you change the password, you'd have to come to CSM into the modify host connection and change the password there as well. And remember to do so. You might forget to do so, and then server shuts down and comes back up and you're not connected and you forgot that you even changed it. So ZOS has something called pass tickets, and the way this basically works is you create what they call pass ticket key, and you tie that to RACF on the system. That's the authentication mechanism on the Z system. And so instead of passing in a password into CSM when you're making that connection, what you'll do is put in that pass ticket key, and CSM stores that. But anytime we then try to make a connection to that ZOS system, we take that pass ticket key and generate what they call the pass ticket. And so this means that every single time that we're connecting, we're creating a unique ticket to authenticate on the Z system, which authenticates that with the key that's stored on the Z system in RACF, and you're able to connect. And in essence, you'll never have to change the password value again with this pass ticket key. It's a one-time set in CSM, and then you're protected because we're constantly changing that every time. Every time we call, we're constantly sending something down, and that pass ticket expires based off the rules on the Z system, and so you're good to go in terms of your security rules. Oh, I should note that with the support, you will need a iOS APAR that will be available shortly after around the time of the 6.3.7 release. All right, the next feature I want to talk about is IDEA CSM I125. This is a new console message for flash copy background copy completing. So if you're familiar with flash copy, the way it works is a point-in-time copy is created, and the data is immediately accessible in the target volume, even though it may not actually be hardened. So you can mount that target volume, you can read it, write to it, and to your application, it thinks the data is there, but in the back, it's not yet there. In the background, might be the storage system might be copying the data and hardening it to that target volume. So CSM does have a message indicating that the background copy is running, as well as we display a progress and percent of out of sync tracks. However, this request from a customer was they wanted to actually know when it had completed. And CSM didn't have any indication of that unless you visually looked at the GUI and saw that the percent was 100% or the status message went away. And so what we did is in 6.3.7 we added a message IWNR2772I. When CSM sees that the background copy has completed, we will issue that to the console, and now customers can use remote syslog or something of that nature to be able to do any automation they might need to know that the background copy has in fact completed. I should put a note of warning that CSM does not query the hardware constantly to get up-to-date status within seconds or so, because it would cause a lot of traffic to the hardware, and we try to avoid overloading the hardware with those kind of query commands. So we do it fairly often, but not often enough that you should use this IWNR message to indicate the time it took for the background copy complete. It's just the time that CSM determined that it no longer saw any out-of-sync tracks. So it's not an exact value, in other words, but it should help you if you're doing any actions that are related to needing to know that the data was hardened on that target volume. All right, next one is not related to a actual RFE IDEA, but something we've done internally. This is improvements in the active standby server support. So in CSM, you can set up an active and a standby server, and in the past, we copied over mostly just the database information. So the database information in terms of sessions, the storage system connections, ZOS host connections, etc., those got copied over. But things like users or properties, those kind of things had to be manually set on the standby server in order to be able to bring up the standby server after a takeover and have the same values. So in 6.3.7, we've made some improvements for distributed servers. Note that if your active or standby server or ZOS system running on a ZOS system, this does not apply. It works as it does today. However, if both are distributed systems, and that does include the CSM HMC, we will now send over all the information, such as the properties. So if you set something in your ARM server properties, you will no longer have to set it on the standby server as well. That will get copied over. If you created the entries into the port pairing CSV file, either on the file system or through the GUI, that gets copied over the standby server as well. Certificates, etc., those will get copied over. And last but not least is the user information. So if you have basic or LDAP users registries, you no longer have to go to the standby and set those up manually. We will copy that stuff over, and you'll have the same user access on that standby server. Now, with that said, you will have to make sure and be careful that that is what you want. That those LDAPs, you want the same LDAP configuration over there, etc. But that's how it will work now. Hopefully this minimizes the work you have to do now, because now, in essence, the two servers are or it's really the same between each other. You don't have to do any special setup to make sure that they are. All right, the next one is some improvements we made to DS8000 Safeguarded Copy. We added 2 new properties into the DS8000 Safeguarded Copy session. The first is allow backups to be manually expired. This property changes some default behavior that you might be used to today. So by default today, a user with proper authority could do a expire on the session in order to remove a given backup, a safeguarded copy backup. This new property prevents that by default now. So when you come back up after upgrading to 6 through 7, by default you will not be able to issue the expire command. You should only have to do a manual expire. CSM does internal retention based off the retention value, so you only should have to do manual expire if you having capacity issues or something such as that, or testing. And if that's the case, you can go back in here and check that value and save the properties to allow you to do the manual expire. But we recommend that you lock things down with either full dual control mode or safeguarded copy dual control mode to ensure that that remains protected there. The second property is a minimum number of backups retention should always maintain. So what this is we have the retention period. You can see up there the number of days or hours. However, if something happens, such as maybe your backups stop forming, etc., but you really are required to have X number of backups in your system, the retention period might kick in and cause you to have less than that number of backups. And so with this value, you can set that, hey, I need to always have 5 backups. Maybe you take a backup every day, want to keep for 7 days, so you usually have 7 backups, but your real SLAs require 5. Well, you can set 5 there, so no matter what, even if a backup has passed the retention period, CSM will no longer expire it if it's going to cause the number of backups to fall below that number you specify. So it just gives you a little bit more security that retention is not going to cause you to fall below your number of backups you need. All right, and the last feature I want to talk about is a change to support ZTPF systems. So today we support connections with the ZOS host systems, as I mentioned earlier on an earlier feature, to connect CSM through IP to that system. While we now have support for ZTPF as well, you will need a ZTPF APR applied to get that support. But what this does is it gives you the ability to manage faster flash copy and safeguarded copy solutions on ZTPF systems with DS8000. So there is a hot topic on this solution for the ZOS side that we created back in 2021. And what this does is provide the same capabilities that hot topic discusses for ZTPF customers. So if you're a ZTPF customer managing data on DS8000, we would highly recommend you look at this solution, and it will help you provide less application impact when you're taking a flash or a backup. All right, I always end this saying that as you can see, we constantly looking at the customer ideas, all your requests coming in. We prioritize them based off of votes, etc. So if there's something you need in CSM, go to this link, open your request, and I guarantee we look at it. I can't promise we'll get to it, but you can see that we do get to a lot. We're constantly looking at those when we put out these new releases. So please go open up your requests, and we'll do our best to get it out. With that, I wanted to say thank you. Hope this video helped, and hope you enjoy the CSM 6.3.7 release.